Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Brian Pontarelli, founder and CEO at Fusionauth. Brian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Hey, great to have you on. I know you're just up the road from me in Denver, so I love that. So let's dive right in and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've been coding since I was 10 probably. Grew up I'm a Colorado native, grew up around town. I went to CU, actually got a computer engineering degree there. Worked at a handful of companies including Exor, which is an old Boulder company, and then, Orbitz and, BEA before they were Oracle. And then eventually just kind of, came up with an idea, went out on my own and started building about 14 or so years ago. So
Awesome. I'm also a CU buff, so a lot of overlap here. So that's great. Yeah. So let's talk about Fusionauth. So what products and services does Fusionauth offer?
Yeah, so Fusionauth is a customer identity and access management tool. And essentially what that means is that we build things like login, registration, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, all of those types of features for apps, right? So we deal with developers that are building applications, want to add all of those security features, all of those, user management features, but don't want to do it internally because again, it's pretty risky. It's hard to get right. You have a hole in your security, you're toast. And then reliably, right? So I always like to say if your login goes down, your cash register is closed, right? You don't make money because that's critical to most applications. So that's what it provides. There's a big distinction between workforce and customer. And so again, one of the analogies I like to use is, when you're paying people salary, you can make their login experience as painful as you want because, you're paying them. When people are paying you money, you better make that login experience really simple and make it as fast as possible. They want to get into the app and they want to pay you money.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I know we've all had login frustrations. And so when we say app, would this be a web application, a mobile application, both?
Yes,
Okay.
plus console, desktop. So we work with game companies where they're on a PlayStation and you want to log in and you kind of get one of those QR code, go to this URL. That could be Fusionauth, right? That could be Fusionauth powering that.
Oh, interesting. And then what about like when I'm logging in to Amazon Video or Netflix on another TV or whatever, and it has the QR code, things like that too as well?
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's the same. We can drive
Okay.
some as well.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. So with your application, so who are you selling into? Are you selling into the developer, the CTO? Who are you reaching out to try to land prospects?
Our main ICPs are we go down to either product. Larger companies might call that digital, right? And then CTO stack. So everything from CTO, VP of engineering, all the way down to like architects, engineers, those kind of folks.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, makes a ton of sense. So I'm guessing, yeah, if you're going after apps, mobile consoles, so that kind of defines then the industries like technology industries. Anything else like niches that you go after with this that would
Well,
be maybe we wouldn't think of?
yeah, we're pretty broad, right? So we deal with like banks. We've got actually a number of notable banks. Some of them I can't mention, but large scale banks with, hundreds of thousands or millions of customers. We work with game companies. We work with a lot of SaaS companies, right? Because their customers are then their users, right? So that's a natural fit. And then a lot of sort of like non-technical companies, right? They just happen to have like an app, like a digital platform. So like insurance and those sort of folks. Automobile makers, we're talking to a couple of airlines. So you can kind of see it's really broad and we solve a really general use case.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. Yeah, really interesting. And then, so what year did you found the company?
So that's a really good question. I always like try to remember when I like quit the day job. So the company was actually founded, created, incorporated in 2005. And then I believe I quit my day job in 2008. It's either 2008 or 2009. I can never remember the
Mm,
exact, but somewhere around there
yeah.
ish.
Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because that's obviously really common is maybe starting this up on the side. So founded in '05. So was this a side project? You're coding it and then reach some mass where you felt comfortable of making that jump.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine and I kind of dreamed up a new web. And we're like, well, HTML, HTTP, these are all like, old school. Let's like recreate the web. And so we founded the company to do that. actually built a prototype, built a specification, like did the whole thing. And then as expected, that's a really, really hard problem to solve. And like the amount of, momentum that the current web has is basically like insurmountable, right? There's no way we could have done that. So we tabled that, sat on the company, and then I started building a profanity filter nights and weekends, and that actually became what we now one of our products, which is CleanSpeak. And so I launched CleanSpeak, again, just kind of doing it nights and weekends. And then once CleanSpeak had enough momentum, enough revenue to justify me jumping ship, that's when I quit the day job. My original co-founder left the company, a couple years after. And then it took us I think about 7 years, 7 or 8 years, maybe even 10 after that to really start working on Fusionauth. And then Fusionauth is what actually ended up ramping. So we used one product to fund another product, which allowed
Mhm.
us to stay bootstrapped the whole time.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate that insight. So definitely a journey for you and then just pivoting and finding that product market fit. So really
Yeah.
interesting. So I think we talked a little bit of you're headquartered in the Denver area then?
Yep. Yeah, we're up north. Our office is in Broomfield, and a good chunk of the company's here as well. Got a little more than half of the company in Colorado.
Okay. And what's your current team size?
That is a really good question because we've hired so many folks. I think last time I checked, we were at 31,
Okay.
maybe 32. I don't know. We continue to hire pretty rapidly. We started off this year. I want to say we started off this year at like 15 or something. So,
Mm.
pretty
Okay.
pretty good growth.
Yeah. Yeah, doubling. That's great. And anything you want to share around revenue or AR ranges?
So we don't share that, and I've been prep for many people, including investors and all that stuff. We don't share our revenue,
Sure.
but I can tell you some awesome numbers, right? So
Mhm.
year over year, we're almost always doubling. Couple years we did better. Last year we did 140% growth ish. Team sizes, continuing to grow. So we continue to see that scale, and we've done it all the way bootstrapped up until October, right? When we took our funding. But the nice position to be in is that, we didn't need the funding. We took the funding to help us accelerate, right? On an awesome
Mhm.
trajectory that we already had versus a lot of folks that get money before they have an idea or before they have product market fit or before they have scale. Well, we did it the opposite way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Love that. So tell us before we talk fundraising or that equity investment, tell us a little bit about your go-to-market motion. How are you finding the product folks, the digital folks, the CTO stack to sell into?
So we do a lot of content marketing. So
Mhm.
SEO is pretty much one of our, bread and butter. We also run a lot of like developer oriented ads, and we look for developer platforms or developer outlets that we know we can advertise in, and they'll just, send us good contacts, send us good developers. So we do newsletters, we do like Twitter, Facebook. Well, we don't do Facebook anymore, but we, do Google, LinkedIn. And the way that we approach it is that we're trying to like hit the developer like right on. So we do a lot of memes. Our ads are really ridiculous and kind of off the wall, or we're providing them like immediate value by like, here's an ebook that's like solely on OAuth. And it's vendor agnostic. So just enjoy. So we do a lot of that as well.
Okay, appreciate that insight. So yeah, now let's talk fundraising. So recent, I don't know how you characterize maybe a growth equity investment. So tell us how much capital you've raised to date now.
Yeah. So growth equity investment is 65 million
Mhm.
from Updata Partners. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's about it, I guess.
that's great. And
Yeah.
so
Just a
tell us,
big round, by the way. It's
yeah,
just the one raise. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, it's great because yeah, bootstrapped up to this point.
Mm.
And so, what was that trigger or milestone that led you to that equity investment then? Because bootstrap for a long time, a lot of pivots, changing product, finding product market fit, scaling, doubling in growth. So what did you see or to then decide on that investment?
So I've been talking to a lot of firms, either PEs, VCs, strategics, and investment bankers, and just kind of getting the lay of the land. Like, what does the landscape of software look like? When do you take on a growth equity round? When do you look for an acquisition? Like all of those questions. And the sort of running consensus is that it's like, okay, when you're gunning for 10 million ARR, when you're like getting scale, when you see product market fit, you know your ICP, basically have everybody in place for each of the main stacks, marketing, sales, all of that. Um, it's a good time to start looking at things, right? And so we checked all of the boxes, right? I mean, like, so we got into that sort of like that butter zone, that sweet spot, and we're just like, okay, let's start talking to people. Well, interestingly, like all of those people sort of came to us in January, February. We're like, feels like kind of a down market, but we're getting like all of this interest. Maybe there's something here. And so we ran a full process to see what it all looked like. And then, ended up with the, growth equity investment route.
Okay, that's great. And then through that, talking about full process for the growth equity investment, did you go alone on that and just your team handles that, or did you hire any advisors or bankers to help you through that process?
Yeah, hired a banker. They did a ton of legwork, right? They built a lot of spreadsheets. They answer a ton of questions. They manage lots and lots of parties and lots of things. It was a down market, right? But we still had a ton of interest, which is great, and they helped manage it. So yeah, I think that it was a good move, right? I mean, obviously there's things that come up in any process, and people stressors are high, tensions get high, but in the end, like getting help is always beneficial, I think.
Yeah, definitely, for a big event like that. And then for other founders who are considering that, and you said, we've got ICP, we found product market fit, we're gunning for 10 million ARR. Maybe we're scaling nicely where this could come into play with a strategic acquisition or investment or growth equity investment. Any lessons learned in that process this year as you went through that equity investment that you could share with founders?
Sure. So anytime you're looking for like an acquisition or growth equity investment, you're just understanding like what due diligence looks like, getting your head right, and understanding like what like a majority investor, minority looks like. Talk to people that have done it before and get your head set, right? Cuz like it's it was a lot more work and a lot more intense than I knew because I just went into it kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. So if, hindsight 2020, if somebody would come down and said like, okay, this is actually what it's going to look like. This is how long it's going to take. This is how painful it's going to be. This is what they're going to ask you for. This is what you're going to end up with. Like gave me like sort of the playbook. I would been in a much better, place. This is
Yeah.
totally different than venture capital, right? Venture capital due diligence is shorter. They're betting on a lot of people. They know their playbook. Go spend a bunch of money, try and, get your company 10, 20, 100x. That's pretty standard for them.
Yeah.
Growth equity, private equity, strategic acquirers is going to be much different.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. You appreciate that insight. So, Brian, at this stage of your business, do you have a favorite number or metric that you're focused on to guide the business?
I mean, revenue growth is always nice, right? I mean, that's what
Yeah.
everybody targets. But like in beyond like just pure revenue growth, we have a lot of sort of like developer metrics. How many people are downloading the product? How much engagement do we have on the product? How many people are like using it in production that are not paying? Still a great metric, right? How many people hit our docs? We track website visitors in this really interesting way where we say, okay, website visitors are nice, but like, what about the website visitors that come to the website, hit the docs, and stay longer than like 30 seconds? That's actually a real indicator that are like, they're probably using the product, right? So people can tout like, oh yeah, we had like, 10 billion website visitors last month. It's like, well, how many of those were actually real and not junk? And so you have to boil it down. And what we found is like, when you boil it down to that, like the big numbers are fun, but the real numbers are real numbers, right? Because it's a fraction. Sometimes like fractions of fractions. It's like tiny little percentages of your real users, but be realistic and say like, okay, well, we got, 1,000 visitors this month that like fit that profile. That's still pretty good. We close like, even 1% of that. You get 10 new customers, right? So do real use real math, right? Don't inflate your numbers because it's just they're fun, but they're meaningless.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then at this stage of business, before we wrap up here, With that investment and now this new stage of the business, what are you focused on? Is it continued product development? Is it boosting your go to market motion? Where are you focusing right now on your business?
It's mostly go to market. So internally, we kind of like to joke a little bit. It's like we came out of the gates with a completely functional production ready product. Not a lot of people do that. Our product is also downloadable, which is very different than what most of the people in the industry do, which means that if you're going to download this and run this in production, it better be rock solid. So the product's not done, but it's certainly usable. Like we're always going to add new features. We're always going to improve the product. But now it's just a matter of like telling everybody we exist and going out and selling it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I love that. So again, Brian, really appreciate your time today. So what's coming up next for Fusionauth?
So we got some really cool features that we're building, some new registration things that are coming down. We're doing custom scopes, which is part of like a specification, right? And we're doing some really cool things with that to help a lot of our customers. We got some new identity things, protecting accounts and like how do you identify people that don't have email addresses and those kind of things. That's really cool stuff. So lots of product things coming down next year. So, stay tuned.
That's great. That's great. Well, appreciate that. So if listeners would like to learn more about Fusionauth, where should we send them online?
So just hit our website. Fusionauth IO is the best place to get information. All of our docs, our pricing, every product feature is listed there. We're very open, very transparent. We don't hide anything. You can get started right online without talking to a salesperson if that's your cup of tea. So that's the best place to go.
All right. Well, sounds good. So if you'd like to learn more about Fusionauth, check out fusionauth.io. And Brian, really appreciate you sharing your experience and insights today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.